Okay, well, hello. Very good to be with you today on this stage in front of the Web Summit audience. Honestly, you look fantastic from here, which makes me a little more excited than I should be, I guess. But, so today, we're going to talk about social media and especially the dark side of it for especially content creators. Now, I look at you, Loren. I see someone who is perhaps got it all from the outside. That's how it looks like. You know, you're gorgeous, and she's even prettier, up close, I guess.
Thank you.
You have power, you have followers, you presumably have financial freedom and all that. But then, is the picture always this rosy? Behind a life full of glitz and glamour, have you ever felt like in your I guess a decade-long journey into social media, have you ever felt like you're hitting a wall and, I don't know, maybe the lights are sort of blinding you, so to say? Have you ever had such an experience?
For me, I think my social media experience has thankfully been very gradual. My career has built over time, which I'm grateful for. I think I just adjusted time and time again, and it wasn't necessarily one burnout experience. It was, a burnout experience after another, and constantly having to reinvent, evolve. So yeah, and I think like the glitz and glamour is maybe 2% of my life. It's very exciting, and I do love beauty and fashion and that aspect of things, but I think it's a very small percentage of the bigger picture.
That's so interesting, because when you look at it from the outside, when I go and check your online, accounts, your TikTok, or when I see you, walking down, in the Web Summit, it just seems like that from the outside. So, I wonder what kind of an experience it is for you. Because I remember in one interview, you said that by the time you hit 16, you were already feeling burnt out, which was, I guess, 3 years after you got into social media.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell us more about that experience, please.
Yeah, I think that was probably the first time that I'd really experienced burnout. I've always been a very determined, very driven person in anything I've pursued. And I think for the first couple of years of social media, I was looking at it with such a rigid framework. I would wake up super early and do exactly what you're saying, my makeup and my hair, and I wanted to be perfect and presentable. And then I found myself realizing that that's not why people were following me. The reason they followed me in the first place was because I was a 13-year-old who was struggling, and there were other 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds who were going through the same thing. And I put so much pressure on myself to fit the bill that I found myself falling behind, and I had to reevaluate and think about the way that I was going about and handling.
We'll come back to that, how your evaluation went and what way you took after that. But now I want to turn to you, Sean, because you work with a lot of creators and influencers. So is this something what Loren is talking about, that experience? Is it something that you see often?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, social media is like anything impactful in life has its pros and cons. Good and bad. It's that double-edged sword, right? You have to figure out how to use the good and manage the bad. For instance, social media can really help some content go viral very quickly globally. But then on the flip side, you say something really negative, and then you can get canceled very quickly like that, right? So that's the bad side. You can use social media to build a brand, have a lot of followers. But then, like what Loren's saying, there's a lot of creators that get burnt out because it takes a lot of time and effort to create content to continue to build that brand for your audience, right? And then make money. You can make money on social for sure, but building a business on social is like building a business on quicksand, because social media, like TikTok or YouTube or LinkedIn, every one of those content platforms have algo, and the algo can change at any given time, right? So they can decide who they want to promote and boost, or what type of content they want to promote and boost, then your content can be shown to less people. They can ban your account without even telling you, giving you what's up. They can, if there's a creator fund that's paying creators out, they can change the rules on those creator funds at any given time as well. So it's like building a business on quicksand. And that's the reason why, companies like ours, like Kajabi, what we do is we tell people, hey, you should use social media to build a audience, to build your brand, but you take your audience off of social to your own place of business, where you can control your destiny. You can decide what you want to offer, who you want to offer it to, how much to charge for that content. You own that relationship end to end. And so Kajabi, we've helped 60,000 customers make over $6 billion. We're about to hit $7 billion in the next few months. So these are really serious businesses. We actually have a creator that has made over $100 million on Kajabi, right? And so through video courses, podcasts, newsletters, exclusive community access, coaching. And the other benefit is that you take home 100% of your earnings, unlike other platforms that take like 30%. So that's the big benefit. And I think that's that's why you should really, if you want to build a business on social, you should definitely do it off of the platform.
Because when you're a creator and when you don't know how to monetize your talent, I guess the question of why am I doing this? What's the point to it? Becomes really, pertinent, I guess. Have you ever experienced something like that?
Yeah, I think for me, my social media didn't start as a means to build a business. That wasn't what I was initially seeking. It's something that came as a result of me enjoying it. And I think it can be really difficult. I think people assume that being a creator and having numbers automatically translates to sales and people buying into whatever you decide to put your name on. And I've spoken a lot about this recently. I think it's important to find, because so many markets are saturated. Every other day there's a new creator makeup brand or celebrity makeup brand or clothing line or anything. And that doesn't necessarily equate to numbers. So I think it's finding the things that you're truly passionate about, that because everyone's so transparent, the audience can see when you're just putting your name on something. I think it's finding the things that you can truly get behind and stand behind and are proud of.
I mean, I think it comes down to the question of who is a successful influencer, I guess. I mean, how do you find meaning in your work is the question. I mean, of course, monetizing it makes it more easier, I'm sure, but also, what is the meaning behind creating all this? Do you want to build an audience? Or do you want to, say things about important subjects that you find about the world, or politics, or whatever? Or do you want to make a difference? Is, I guess, the question. It becomes the question, I think, when you are in that position. For example, for you, I wanted to ask Sean, who is a successful influencer for you?
Loren's very successful.
I mean, how do you define who is successful, or how do you define success? Someone who has the most followers, or someone who can monetize the best? Or
I mean, like the worst position to be in is if you're super famous but have no money, right? That's the worst. No, I mean, like what I've seen is that the creators that are most successful provide content that improves someone else's quality of life, right? So, there are they're basically subject matter experts, and they use social platforms as a means to find an audience that want to learn from them, and then they create this content that helps them improve their quality of life. So I think that as long as you're solving a problem for people through your content, there could be a potential business there. And from our research, we've seen that you don't have to have millions of followers to make a ton of money. You only need 100 people to pay you $100 a month to make over $100,000 a year, right? So it's not directly correlated either. Like if you have some people, I've known creators that have millions of followers and make not much money at all, and I know creators that have a few hundred followers that make millions of dollars, right? So they're not directly correlated. I think the content and your subject matter expertise and your audience is really important to make sure you're building a successful business using social media. So from that perspective, just make sure that if you're creating content, you are solving some kind of problem for your audience, and ideally your audience has money to spend as well, right? So some of the most successful creators on our platform, they're actually teaching how to get a job in tech companies, or how to take care of how to sleep train kids, or like how to create a business around dog walking, right? Very, very diverse, different kind of businesses, but all those businesses that I mentioned just now make millions of dollars a year, and none of them have millions of followers. So it's actually very, very possible. So I think that's really it. It really comes down to, hey, you're solving a problem for people, and the people you're solving problems for have money to spend, and that's the type of content that you want to create.
Loren, what is a good day like for you on social media? When you go to bed, when do you say, "Ooh, it was a good day"? When you go viral, or when you feel like you've done something meaningful, or someone says something from the audience and you get really excited about that?
I think success as an influencer, I think it varies from person to person. I think where one person might value, business and monetization more, someone else might be like, someone came up to me and said something really nice today, and that made me feel good. Of course, monetization is important and building a business is important, but I think just to add a different perspective, I've had people come up to me today that have like, I watched your content since I was really young, and they're able to call out specific moments, and that's very special to me. So I think everyone defines success differently, and I think sometimes that's through monetization, sometimes it's just because I've been able to connect to someone.
But not everyone is that positive online, right? Like you get mean comments, or sometimes when people compliment you all the time, it's probably hard to deal with as well, right? Like there's this benchmark for you. I gotta be perfect all the time. I don't know, I'm just assuming, because it would be the case with me if people said that I was, perfect all the time, I guess. So how do you deal with that? Like what you do is open to commentary, but then you shouldn't really hear it every time. So how does it work for you?
I mean, I've had the same issue. I've been doing this for a long time, so I've experienced a lot of it, and I think through that process I've grown quite a thick skin. But it can be difficult, and for me it's more about focusing on the difference that I'm making, even if it's just for one person, even if that just means that someone feels like they can relate. I think when I was a kid and I was going through all kinds of stuff, I didn't have anyone that I could look to relate to, that was accessible or that I felt like was like me. And being that for other people has been really special, and that's what I want to continue to do.
I mean, any actionable tips, perhaps, for
I don't know, because it's
people?
hard to tell people just ignore it. You know what I mean? Because it does hurt, and you can't
Keep a diary or something. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
how do you...
I mean, there's all sorts of things, and I think the way you cope depends on the person. But for me, I surround myself with really great people who make me feel really good about myself, and it makes the rest of the noise a lot easier to deal with.
All right, then let's go back to when you first started social media, that 15-year-old Loren. What advice would you give her if she was sitting right next to you right now? What would you say?
I think 15-year-old Loren was doing exactly what she needed to be doing. I think every decision I've made has led me to here. I wish I would have trusted myself more. I think so often as a young woman in any professional space, it can be hard to even take yourself seriously when no one else values you. I had built this huge platform, and yet I was still walking into rooms where people were giving me zero credit. And I began to think that about myself, and I wish I could go back and change the way that I viewed myself at that time, and gave myself a little bit of credit. But other than that, I think she was doing exactly what she needed to be doing, and I've always followed my intuition.
And how do you feel, in one word, rapid fire, how do you feel about the place your career is at right now, where you've come to about social media?
I'm very proud.
Proud?
I think it's easy to knock it. I think not everyone understands it, but I'm very proud.
You should be proud.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And Sean, I'm sure there are aspiring creators out there or creators who are listening to this session. You're so experienced. Tell us what advice you would give them to cope with the dark side of social media.
Yeah, so I mean, I can just speak to it from a creator as well as a executive. I would say number one is like fail often, fail fast. Like just try stuff out. Like don't wait until content or your product is perfect, because it'll take forever, right? That same advice goes to like startups. You just gotta like put it out there, right, and see what happens, and fail and learn from that failure and move on, right? That's advice I would give myself, if I was younger, for sure. Number two is like just trust your gut. I've made actually the biggest decisions I've made in my life were all gut calls. I mean, I'm a pretty data-driven guy. I mean, I depend on a lot of data at work to make decisions. Usually have 70% of data to make a decision, but the biggest gut call decisions I've made in my life were or decisions I made were all gut calls, right? Going from like Amazon to TikTok, back in 2019 when TikTok was not even a real business or app, was a gut call, right? And going from TikTok to Kajabi, also a gut call. Going from the most, successful, viral company in the world to a fairly smaller, unknown company called Kajabi, gut call, right? So I think like these big decisions are all based on gut calls. So I think that's really, really important. The third, I would say, if I were talking to my 15-year-old self, is invest in Bitcoin. Back then, it was like worth nothing. I wish I'd invested more, but yeah, I'd say those are the three.
And I mean, speaking of your career, in hindsight, I guess, what would you have done differently about, working with influencers, and, what could you do that you did not do, you feel like?
I mean, I think like talking to a lot of influencers as well as like startup companies as well, I think like the very first thing is to make sure that you don't spend too much, don't take it too serious in the beginning. I think like spending a lot of time to like iterate on the actual content as well as the product. That's what I hear from a lot of the most successful creators as well as startup founders in the world, is that they actually just put something out there. They get feedback very quickly from their audience. Like, hey, what's working, what's not working? What do you want to see more of? What type of content do you want to see or see less of, right? So you get this feedback quickly and use that to create the version 2, version 3, version 4, and so on. And that's been very consistent advice from every single successful creator I've interviewed or worked with. It's like, hey, the first version is going to suck. Just deal with it. Just put it out there, see what happens. Iterate on it, and then version 10 will be way better, right? But you have to do that. But that's like a process you have to go through, right? No one's perfect on the first try.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great note to end it with, I guess. Thank you so much. It was great being with you. And let's give it up for Loren Gray and Sean Kim. It was great being with you today.
Thank you.